Allyse Sedivy, and I'm excited to be wearing shoes for you today. So, to start off today, we are going to be talking about something that's really important, and it's important to all of us. And this is our mental well-being. All of us strive for this. All of us try to have good mental well-being, and when we don't, we suffer, and it's really, really challenging, and it's really hard for so many of us. And it's hard for the people that we love. And this is something that can totally turn someone's life upside down. And this is the epidemic of depression, anxiety, and stress. And this is so hard to deal with sometimes. And a lot of times, we don't know how to get out of it. And people say, you know what, you just need a better attitude. You just need to try a little bit harder. And you try harder and you have a better attitude, and nothing seems to help. Well, to kind of start us off, I want to go back to when I was in high school. When I was in high school, I was a very optimistic and bubbly person. My mother and grandmother would call me a ray of sunshine, and I loved being happy. In fact, I loved being happy so much that it became my identity. I was happy Marisa all the time. It didn't matter what situation I was, what circumstances I was put into. I made a decision that I was going to be happy about it. And this allowed me to do some really cool things in my life. And it gave me a really good self-confidence and self-awareness. And it made me want to try. It made me want to be the best person I could become. And so I started setting really, really high goals for myself. Goals that would push myself so that I could become better. So at the age of 16 years old, I started my first business with my mother. And I love this business. It's awesome. Yeah, business. And it was phenomenal. Well, then at the age of 17 years old, I decided I wanted to become a public speaker. So I was mentored by the Coveys on how to public speak. And this is actually a picture of my very first keynote speaking event in front of hundreds of elementary school kids. And this was an awesome moment in my life. I felt like I was able to share my happiness with others, and I was able to give back. And that made me even happier. And so I decided I was gonna set some new goals. And when I was 18 years old, I decided I was going to try to get on the United States national tumbling and trampolining team. Okay, raise of hands, who even knows what that is? Yeah, like, not very many of us, right? Okay, so pretty much it's like gymnastics, minus the bar, minus the beam, minus the vault. Take the floor, cut it in a little strip, and you have power tumbling, and then it's on steroids, right? So this is what I did, and this was my passion. I worked day in and day out to try to become the best I could. And because of this, I felt joy in my journey in trying to become the best athlete I could become. And I loved this. And because I loved it so much, I decided I was going to start a second business. And so I started a business called The Happiest Person in the Room. And this was a business where I actually would go and interview millionaires all over and talk to them about success and happiness and the correlation between the two. This was like my element. I felt like I was being pushed. I was learning so much. In fact, it was probably the most educational time in my whole entire life. More educational than any school I'd gone to or any class I'd ever taken, because I was sitting there with people who had walked the certain paths to success and had become happy and had found financial freedom, and that was awesome. Well, when I was 19 years old, my world shattered, almost overnight. And I started to struggle with something I never thought I would ever deal with. And I started to struggle with depression and anxiety. And it was almost like someone had ripped my identity away from me and put me in a shell of myself. And I didn't know how to get out of it. I didn't know what to do. And at first I thought to myself, you know what? It's just gonna last a few days. I'll get over it. So a few days passed and I didn't get over it. In fact, I was getting sadder. And then I told myself, you know what? It's just a funk. It will pass with time. And so I waited the time out. And a month passed, 2 months passed, 3 months passed. And then I started thinking, wow, maybe this is just who I am. Maybe I was so naive to think that happiness was even real. Maybe it's something I just made up. It's not even attainable. Why should I even try? And once I bought into this idea that happiness was simply not in the cards for me, I began to get even sadder. And I could not pull myself out of this by myself. There was no way. And so I remember the day specifically that I told my best friend about what I was struggling with. In my mind, I had mentally prepared myself and said, if I don't tell someone else, there's no way I can dig myself out of this hole. So I need to open up to someone. And this was my very best friend in the whole entire world, and we were studying together in the same room. And I was at my desk and she was at hers, and I closed my book and I finally got the courage to tell someone that I wasn't happy for the first time in my life. And I remember I slowly walked over to her desk and I knelt down and I looked up into her eyes and I said, there is something wrong with me. I don't know what it is, and I do not know how to fix it. That was hard. Well, she looked back at me and she gave me the biggest hug she's ever given me in her whole entire life. And she comforted me, but she didn't know what it was. She didn't know how to fix it. She didn't know how to drag me out of the sadness that I was feeling. And so it was comforting, but it didn't last. I wasn't getting any happier. I felt again like a shell of myself, and it got to the point where I was so sad that I would end every single night crying in my bed, and my pillow would be covered in my own tears, and I would think to myself, I can't do it. I don't want to get it tomorrow. I don't want tomorrow to come, because if tomorrow comes, it will be just as bad as today was, and as bad as yesterday was, and the day before that, and the day before that. And I thought to myself, there's no way. Well, I would cry myself to sleep. And then right when I woke up, I would cry again, saying, no, I can't do it. I can't be this sad again and again and again. I cannot live another day feeling like this. I can't live not feeling like myself. It was almost like every single morning, life required me to build this giant wall. And this wall would hold back millions of gallons of water that were my emotions of fear, sadness, frustration, anxiety, depression, all of these emotions that I was feeling. And I would have to build this wall to hold them back and keep them at bay. Well, as the day would go on, my wall would crack. And the crack would spread like a spider web, covering the entire wall until the wall disintegrated and released millions of gallons of water. And this water would demolish everything that stood in its path. And that included me. I would be ripped to shreds, broken down, more tired, more frustrated, and the next day when I got out of bed, I had to build the wall again. And I thought to myself, I can't do it. It's too hard. So I decided, okay, well, we need to figure out how to build the wall differently. And I said, okay. So I started counting my blessings as I walked down the street. And I had a positivity journal that I would write down 3 positive things that happened that day. And when that didn't work, I said, well, maybe I'll talk to a therapist. And when that didn't work, I said, well, maybe I'll be more vulnerable with people. When that didn't work, I said, well, maybe I just need to accept this. Maybe sadness is just who I am. Well, this went on for a really long time. And it was like I would build this wall, and in this time, I would build it a foot taller. But nothing would change. I wouldn't feel any better. And then it would still crash down. And then the next day I said, well, maybe I'll just build the wall differently or in a different place, or maybe I'll build it a foot thicker, right? But it didn't matter. The thickness, the height, the different shapes I could build the wall in, they never worked. None of them had a lasting impact on my personal happiness and getting me to a place where my mental well-being was where I wanted it to be. And so each day I would crawl back to my pile of rocks and I would build the wall again. And it would shatter. It would start with a crack and like a contagious virus spread across the wall, and within a matter of minutes, I would be devastated. I would be in the bathroom, I would be crying, and I couldn't fix my world. And this is how I felt like for over a year. It was the hardest year, probably of my entire life. But then something wonderful happened. We had convention, right? By raise of hands, how many of you attended doTERRA's convention last year? Yeah, hopefully all of us did. It was amazing, don't you think? Yeah, I loved it also. Well, one of the cool things they do at convention is they release new products. And this year, it was like they released a product that was designed for me. It was like doTERRA had Marisa Sedivy Dalton in mind when they released this product. And many of you know what it is. It's adaptive, right? Woo! Adaptive is awesome. Okay, but I didn't know that at the time. At the time, I was still sad. I was still anxious. I was still so tired of building this wall day in and day out that I just said, you know what? Cool product. I don't that sounds awesome, but I'm so sad. I'm so just filled with hopelessness right now. Well, I remember a specific time where I was going on a business trip, and this business trip lasted over 2 weeks long. And I went to my mother's house for a few days before continuing on this trip. And I was really sad one of the nights. I was in my bed, I was crying at night. My mom came in and she was asking me what was wrong and how she could help. And I just said, you can't help, I'm sad. This is how I am. I'm just a sad person. This happens every night. Well, my mom wanted to help me. Like all mothers want to help their children. And so she walked out and then she came back in a few minutes later and she was holding the adaptive series. And she said, will you please try this? And I said, I'll try it. At this point, I had tried everything. I had done everything I could think of. I had tried my very best to pull myself out of this and I couldn't. So I was willing to try anything to get better, to feel some kind of relief in my life. And so she rubbed it on my wrists, put drops in my hand, made me breathe it in, and then she had me take the adaptive supplement. Well, I went to bed. Didn't really think much about it. Woke up the next morning. I remembered to pack it in my suitcase as I continued to travel. And as the days went by, I got more and more stressed. And I got more and more sad. And I remembered I had adaptive and I said, hey, let's try this. So again, I rolled it on my wrist, breathed it in, and took the supplement. Well, I felt a little bit better. So I thought to myself, while I'm on this trip, let's just try to be consistent with it. So I began to be consistent with this product and I would take it every single day for the rest of this trip. And I started to feel increasingly happier as I took this. Well, when I came back home to my cute little husband, I don't know if he likes being called little, but I don't know if he likes being called big either. So when I came back home to my husband, he said, you seem different. And I looked at him and I said, I feel different, right? And I really did. I felt like I was more in control of my emotions and that I could just handle my world again, which was something I hadn't felt in a year. And so he looked at me and said, well, what changed? And I said, adaptive. Oh, it's not on the screen. Adaptive. And adaptive is what changed. I started taking this and he said, you take that every day. And I said, okay. So then, right then I decided, okay, we're gonna be super consistent with this product. So I would lay it out each morning and I would take it with my Lifelong Vitality. And I started to feel to feel the impact that this product was having. And I would take the supplement each morning, and over time I could handle stress again. I could be frustrated for longer amounts of time without melting down. I could be sad and then pull myself out of it. And it changed me so much that my husband was noticing this huge difference in my life. And he was loving this, and I was loving it. Everything was perfect until I ran out. Right? That's the story of everything. So I ran out and I thought to myself, well, my next LRP order is coming in just a week and a half. I will just wait. I won't take it for a week and a half, and I'll start taking it again when I get my new oils. And me and my husband said, okay. And I stopped. I didn't take this product. Well, day 1 was okay. Day 2 was okay. And then day 3, I had a complete meltdown. Like, I woke up again crying, and the whole entire day I was telling my husband that I was an awful person, that I couldn't do anything, that my life was a disaster, and he was just holding me, like literally like a little baby on his lap. And he was just holding me and petting my hair and saying, it's gonna be okay. And I was like, no, you don't understand, it's not gonna be okay. I'm gonna be sad for the rest of my life. And right as I said that, he whipped open my computer, got on, logged on, went to doTERRA.com, and found the adaptive, right? I didn't even show him. He just found it. He was motivated at this point. And he placed an order, and he said, we are picking this up tomorrow morning. And I was like, do I have to go to the product center again? And he was like, yes. So he dragged me, right, all the way to the product center. And then I asked him the funniest question when we walked out and we picked up this adaptive. I said, what would you do with your last $40, Braden? If that's all we had to our names, not a dime more, would you spend it on buying food? Because that's like a basic life necessity. We all need food every single day. Or would you buy doTERRA's adaptive? And he looked at me and said, hands down, adaptive. And I was like, well, you love food. This is a big deal, right? And that is the moment when it hit me, that these essential oils are worth more than gold. They are worth more than the last penny that we have in our bank accounts, because they not only change lives, but adaptive literally saved mine.
Amen.
It was like doTERRA had handed me my life back on a silver platter and said, there you go. And I was like, what the heck? I'm happy again. I feel like I can handle my world. I feel like my well-being is where I want it to be, and I'm emotionally in control of my own life. There are so many people that you know who are struggling right now with their mental well-being, who are struggling with PTSD, depression, anxiety, stress, postpartum, and they are desperately looking for a way out. And most of them have no idea where to turn. And they've tried everything, they've exhausted every measure, but yet nothing is helping, nothing's really making a significant difference. And so they just kind of give up. They stop looking. They say, you know what? I'm destined to be sad. But that's no way to live life. Life is not worth living when you feel like that. Life is worth living with joy and peace and comfort. And that's what we strive for. Every single day, we want to find meaning and the purpose of our lives. That is the power that you have.